What are you trying to threaten us with? Are there many of you? And when has Russian weaponry ever been otherwise in history? There has usually been a multitude of enemies, but we prevailed. A man is made for war, and a Russian is made for victory. We always win. We may lose peace because of our own internal strife, but in war, we always win.
Putin throws Trump's so-called peace plan back in his face and makes it clear we'll fight until the very end. And while Europe stands with Ukraine, the Russians, of course, are busy threatening them with nuclear weapons as usual. New week, new nonsense from Russia. I'm Sofia, and this is Spin Snipers, where we turn Kremlin drama into quick reality checks. These talks are going on while Ukraine, the EU and Washington are genuinely trying to find a compromise that could satisfy both Kyiv and Moscow, and finally, in the war, it seems the Kremlin is busy playing its own geopolitical games. Sure, Moscow keeps talking a big game about being ready for diplomacy, but of course they want to achieve their goals no matter what. No compromises, no limits, just their way or highway.
The objectives of the special military operation will undoubtedly be achieved. We would prefer to accomplish this and eliminate the root causes of the conflict through diplomacy. However, if the opposing side and its foreign patrons refuse to engage in substantive dialogue, Russia will achieve the liberation of its historical lands by military means. The task of creating and expanding a security buffer zone will also be carried out consistently.
Just to be crystal clear, Putin has only one goal: the destruction of Ukraine as an independent state and the spread of dictatorship ideas across the globe. Democracy that's never been Russia's thing. And then there is the Kremlin historical lens excuse. Putin's justification for murdering thousands of innocent Ukrainians with his bloody army. First, if parts of Ukraine were ever under Russian control in the past, it was only because Russia conquered them, just like they are trying to do now. And somehow that's supposed to make breaking international law totally fine? Of course, the Berlin peace talks quickly became a playground for Russian propagandists. Let's hear what they have to say.
So, what has Europe turned into? There is supposed to be some protocol, some form of compliance. A president is meant to meet with a president. And here, who are they rolling out this reception for? With all due respect to Witkoff and Kushner, what official authority do they actually have? They are not diplomatic officials, yet they are being given a de facto royal reception. So, Europe has truly turned into nothing.
Honestly, the attacks on Europe here make zero sense. But in classic fashion, the Russians always try to humiliate it. What's really interesting, Putin himself recently gave a royal welcome to Witkoff and Kushner, or does that not count? Of course, Russian talking heads analyzed the meeting and somehow found all the signs that Europe apparently does not want peace.
Many strange ideas were voiced, but perhaps the most striking one, which shows that Europeans, by and large, do not want an agreement, is the claim that Ukraine should have an army of 800,000 troops, that monitoring should be carried out by Western actors, and that Ukraine should receive the frozen funds and obtain membership in the European Union.
If you think that Russian lies cannot get any crazier, buckle up. According to Moscow, it's Europe, yes, the same countries actually helping Ukraine defend itself, that's magically the one responsible for the war. And of course, the Russian dictator has completely lost it, even going as far as blaming Europe for starting the whole thing.
It was not us who started the war in 2022. It was destructive forces in Ukraine, supported by the West. In essence, the West itself unleashed this war. We are only trying to end it, to stop it. and we initially tried to do so by peaceful means through the Minsk negotiations, as you remember. Only later were we forced to include a military component because we realized that we were being deceived.
Wait, what? Did we hear that right? According to Moscow, back in 2014, when Ukrainians were taken to the streets on Maidan to decide their own political and geopolitical future, choosing European integration over the custom union, the West somehow started a war? Of course, because obviously the real crime was that people got tired of a corrupt president Yanukovych and wanted to move closer to Europe. Not, Russian soldiers, aka little green men, invading Crimea and Donbass.
President Trump says that if he had been president at the time, nothing like this would have happened. That may well be true, because the previous administration deliberately steered the situation toward an armed conflict. And I think it is clear why. Everyone believed that in a short period of time, they would destroy Russia, cause it to collapse, and the European powers immediately joined in this effort of the former U.S. administration, hoping to profit from the disintegration of our country.
Profiting from the collapse of Russia? Yeah, right. More like Russia wants to profit from the collapse of the EU, spreading autocratic ideas into democratic countries, supporting pro-Russian Viktor Orban, case in point. And of course, the Russians are blunt about it. They have zero interest in a ceasefire, even at Christmas. Speaking of Christmas, Russian propagandists just cannot resist reminding everyone how spiritual their country supposedly is.
A Christmas truce. Who says that? A person who doesn't even know when our Christmas is, Merz declares it, in whom there is nothing Christian. When was the last time Merz was even in any house of worship? I always have a simple question for them. I'm not asking about symbols of faith. Can you recite the Lord's Prayer? You probably consider yourself a deeply religious person if you start talking about a Christmas truce.
No ceasefire. Not at Christmas. Not ever. Their goal, total conquest of Ukraine. And about that spiritual greatness, Russian propagandists are lying again. This time, apparently, Ukrainians are attacking the sacred.
In Krasnoarmeysk, the Church of the Archangel Michael, a very beautiful church. At night, it was attacked by Ukrainians. The dome, I've told you this story, but this story is telling. Because Donbass, Dima knows, he grew up there. It's a place of amazingly beautiful churches. And our soldiers who do not shoot at churches while churches are destroyed to the ground, wounded, mutilated, sometimes almost killed by the Uka-Nazis. That's it. And when Europe suddenly tries to tell us something about faith, about religion, satanic Europe.
The only truth? Russians themselves are the ones bombing churches, the very Christian sites they love to brag about defending. My data is not new, but the numbers speak for themselves. As of February 2025, Russian occupiers had damaged or completely destroyed 642 religious buildings, 596 of them Christian churches. And I'm sure those numbers have only gone up since then. And of course, by their logic, we don't target civilians, only military sites. Sure. Meanwhile, classic Kremlin contradictions continue. As we've seen, the main target of their propaganda is Europe. Russia has been waging hybrid war against it for years, but now Putin suddenly claims there is no threat at all. Yeah, we totally believe that.
I have said repeatedly, this is a lie, nonsense, simply nonsense, about some imaginary Russian threat to European countries. But it is done quite deliberately. The truth is that Russia has always, even in the most difficult circumstances, as they say, to the very end, while there was even the slightest chance, sought to find diplomatic solutions to contradictions and conflicts. And the responsibility for the fact that these chances were not used lies entirely with those who believed that one could speak to us in the language of force.
No threats, no desire to fight, of course, but somehow Russian drones are buzzing over NATO countries. Somehow a medium-range missile system was handed to Belarus and Putin alert. Right on Europe's doorstep. Interesting. Why do you think that is?
By the end of the year, a medium-range missile system equipped with the hypersonic Oreshnik missile will be put on combat duty. Last November, its combat use was conducted for the first time.
Meanwhile, while Putin tries to convince everyone there won't be a war, his cronies on Russian TV are already dreaming up where and how they would use nuclear weapons. Of course, somewhere in Europe.
This is an attack on us now. It is a direct attack.
Welcome to the club of nuclear maniacs.
No. Wait. The question is where to apply it. Where exactly to apply it? Right now, we are striking the infrastructure of eastern Ukraine. You know, the Americans showed how it should be done against the main enemy, but by training on on the Japanese.
Well, then suggest where.
Western Ukraine.
So that the wind rose carries it toward Poland.
There is one thing here. If they now start using these assets and channel them into supporting Ukraine, military support for Ukraine, then we need to raise the price of that support. And that price will only be real if it affects a broader...
Well then, that wouldn't be Western Ukraine. In my view, everything is very simple. The military infrastructure of European countries must be destroyed.
When Russians realize they've got nothing to scare anyone with and everything's going against them, of course they pull out the nuclear card, just to frighten Western leaders and especially citizens. And Europe has reason to be scared. They genuinely want peace, a real, fair peace. They want to protect Ukraine from a third Russian attack and, of course, make Moscow pay reparations. But in Russia, none of that matters. So, naturally, they threaten.
If there is, once again, a war with NATO, it will be a war fought exclusively with the use of special weapons, with the most decisive objectives, involving strikes against administrative and political centers. These strikes will be of such force that any possibility of organized resistance will be eliminated. The destruction would be on a scale that is difficult to imagine even now. There would be mass civilian casualties caused by the secondary effects of nuclear weapons. Even those countries that hope to sit it out would be affected.
That's it for today. While the Russian propaganda machine keeps running, we'll keep exposing their lies. I'm Sofia and this was Spin Snipers. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and don't fall for the spin.